Hello there. This is Welsh ASMR 82. Hey, how you doing? In today's video, we're going to be looking at maps which explain the history of Israel and Palestine. And we've got quite a few different ones dating back a long time, up to more or less modern times. I feel this video, albeit very controversial, is important at the minute, particularly in a time of the spread of misinformation and people getting their facts and figures from social media. I think that it's really important to look at sourced history books. And as this is a map ASMR channel, how better to do it, but with visualization. Easy for me to say, visualization, using maps. Okay, we're going to start at the very beginning. And all I'm going to say is, I am reading the facts. And I will also try and remember to put this as my source in the info. It's a fantastic book. I'll be using it a lot for videos in the future on this channel. It's a history of the world in 500 maps. Perfect for this channel. It's by Thames and Hudson, Christian Gratalu. I've marked the pages that I want to look at today. All that I ask is in the comments section you are respectful, particularly of my attempt to look at this from the beginning and get all of the facts. Okay, here we go. This is supposed to be an ASMR video meant to help you relax and fall asleep, so that's why I'm talking in this way, in case you've stumbled upon my channel for the first time. And hopefully the majority of us will be informed in a relaxing way. I apologise to those of you who are watching where this is not relaxing, but at least I'm trying to spread the history and information about this very sensitive region of the world. Let's go back to what it was originally like in the Bible, represented in the Bible, the biblical world. So we have the area here. Of course we don't have the borders, but the groups of people instead. So this would be Israel. The Phoenicians lived here in this area. Arameans here, near Damascus in Syria, modern-day Syria. And then we've got the Ammonites and the Moabites, Edomites down here, and Judah, Israel, and the Philistines near Gaza. Okay, so it says, identifying the lands of the Bible. There is no archaeological evidence for the existence of the kingdom of David and Solomon in the 10th century BCE. The only record of it is in the Bible, although non-biblical sources mention the kingdoms of Israel and Judah in the 8th century BCE. The former was overrun by the Assyrians in 722 BCE, while the latter was captured by the Babylonians in 587 BCE. Many of the references to peoples and places in the Bible use names established long after the events of Bible are said to have happened. Let's take a look at Jerusalem. So it says, today's city contains very few traces of the time of Solomon. Jerusalem grew after the destruction of the kingdom of Israel in the 8th century BCE. And archaeological sites such as the Siloam Tunnel suggest that it had been an impressive city. It was captured and destroyed again in 587 BCE, before being rebuilt under Persian rule. By the Hellenistic period, 323 BC, however, Jerusalem was quite modest in size. The most substantial periods of development came during a century of independence, 164 to 163 BCE, and at the start of the Roman Protectorate. Titus razed the city after a rebellion in 70 CE, but the Emperor Hadrian rebuilt it in 131 CE in a Roman style that can still be seen today in the streets of the old city. As we can see, Harrod's Gate, Damascus Gate, the New Gate and Jaffa Gate, Solomon's Temple here, the Golden Gate, St. Stephen's Gate, Solomon's Palace, the Mokhrabi Gate, the West Hill, Zion Gate, Mount Zion, and then David's City, David's Palace, tombs here, Gihon Spring, Siloam Tunnel, the Mount of Olives, and the Cedron Valley. Jewish exile in Babylon. Unlike the Exodus, the Hebrews' flight from Egypt led by Moses, the captivity in Babylon described in the Bible, the second book of Kings and 2nd Chronicles, clearly matches with historical events. In 587 CE, Nebuchadnezzar absorbed the kingdom of Judah into the Neo-Babylonian Empire. In keeping with the practice of the time, the political, religious and financial elite were rounded up and deported, but the rural population was allowed to stay. The route into exile, and that of the return journey after the Persian occupation of Babylon in 539, follows the Fertile Crescent, thus retreading the path of the successive invasions of Palestine by the armies of the Mesopotamian empires. In case you don't know, the Fertile Crescent is around modern-day Iraq. Babylon said to be here, in between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. Over here to Jerusalem and Gaza. Over close to the Nile in modern-day Egypt. Okay, next up. Some information on the Crusades there. It's not in today's video, but we'll come back to it at some point. Okay, I think this is a really important point to do with modern-day Israel, which is the Jewish diaspora between the 16th and 20th centuries. Looking at the map here, we can see most of modern-day Germany, but also Czech Republic, France was the Ashkenazi domain until the year 1096. I'll come back and explain all of the arrows pointing everywhere in a second, particularly this one, shooting off of the Atlantic. But it should be noted that not only this section here, but also here with Poland's capital, Warsaw, Vilnius Vilnius of Lithuania, Riga of Latvia, Kiev of Ukraine, and Chisinau of Moldova. Okay, the 5 centuries of Jewish migrations after the capture of Granada by the Catholic monarchs, Granada being here-ish in Spain. The Sephardic Jews were driven out of Spain and dispersed around the Mediterranean basin and Europe. Around 60,000 flowed into the Ottoman Empire. Between 1492 and the mid-16th century, the Ashkenazi communities, which had been present in Western Europe since ancient times, moved eastward en masse. So they go there. In the 15th and 16th centuries, adopting Poland, the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Russia as their homes. In the 19th century, murderous pogroms triggered migrations in the opposite direction, as Ashkenazi Jews fled to Western Europe and the Americas, which explains this. And Theodor Herzl's Zionist movement held its first Congress in Basel in 1847. It called for the creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. In the 20th century, after the Nazi seizure of power in Germany and then the Shoah, Holocaust, all Jewish communities provided migrants to Palestine and, subsequently, Israel. So you can see that the blue is the migrations to Palestine and Israel between the 19th and 20th centuries. And they're coming from here, Moscow, so this is Russia. From places such as Bulgaria, Poland, but also from North Africa and Eastern Africa, the Middle East, and from further east, Asia. Okay, and then we get to the more modern period. We're talking here about the years between 1948 and 2005. We start to discuss Israel and the Palestinian territories. Actually, I think I've missed a slight section here. Yes, sorry, I did mark it. Okay, this explains a lot more. Okay, so the Middle East between 1948 and 1988. Actually, there's one piece of history that I think we do need to fill in. Okay, this is the San Remo Conference in 1920. Okay, so we split here Syria, Lebanon, southern Turkey, with Iraq. Kuwait's not involved at the moment, and Hijaz, which becomes Saudi Arabia. This is Transjordan at this point in time, and this is called Palestine. So the French mandate is in blue, and the British mandate is in red. Let's explain this, because obviously this here is what we're going to be talking about in depth. In 1917, the British drove the Ottomans out of Palestine and then unfurled an ambiguous political programme that promised Jews a national homeland in Palestine. The Balfour Declaration of the 2nd of December 1917, while also giving assurances to the Arabs. Once the fighting was over, peace negotiations sought an equitable division of territories between the victors, as foreseen by the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1917. along with a recognition of people's right to self-determination. The Versailles Conference decided upon a system of mandates. Article 22 of the Charter of the League of Nations, adopted on the 28th of April 1919, stipulated that the mandatory powers would guide peoples towards independence. Drawn out talks about the configuration of the borders between Syria, Lebanon and Palestine then followed. The San Remo Conference took place from the 19th to the 26th of April 1920 to prepare a peace treaty with the Ottoman Empire, the future Treaty of Sèvres. The end result was a division of the empire's former Arab provinces and the creation of 3 mandates, 2 British, Palestine, Transjordan and Iraq, and 1 French, Syria and Lebanon. Okay, I think we can skip this bit actually because it's not as important as the next section here. Okay, let's look carefully at these maps together. So this is Israel and the Palestinian territories between 1948 and 2005. Okay, this is a population chart. We can see the size of the circles and the difference in the Jewish population and the Arab population. Remembering at this time, Transjordan was still the name of this area of land here. Syria and Egypt. So, Jewish population is in blue and Arab is in green. And we can see, for example, that in Jaffa there is a larger Jewish population. In Haifa there is a larger Arab population. And in Jerusalem, Arab as well. And then 1947's partition plan. The plan was originally to give the blue sections to Israel, this new state that was being created by the British, whilst enabling the Arabs to stay in the green section. Then it just says Arab country for the others. Curiously, Lebanon is not included in that, I'm not sure why. And then, interestingly, the red is for international zone. So Jerusalem, which sat inside the Arab state of proposed Palestine, actually kind of like Berlin during the Cold War, in what was then East Germany, was seen to be an international zone, belonging to neither one nor the other. So that was in 1947. In 1948 there was a war, we'll read about that in a second. And not only did the Israeli forces unite this section here, but they changed the format of the original plans. Gaza did remain, although less so, and Jerusalem was shared in half between this now West Bank, the West Bank of the Jordan River, which separates the state of Jordan, now Transjordan Jordan, from the state of Israel and Palestine, and Gaza here. But at this point in time, after the 1948 war, Gaza was still being controlled by Egypt. So we don't see any border there. Okay. And then we're going to read about the Six-Day War in just a second. But to show you that after the 1967 war, Israel not only occupied this new area of land, but also held the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. We'll see the full extent of that in a second. Gaza, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights, which at that time belonged to Syria or Lebanon. Okay, so that symbol there is for occupied territory. Let's have a look over here. This is about the partition of Palestine. At the time of Israel's foundation, most of the inhabitants of the mandatory Palestine were Arab, 1.3 million, as against 630,000 Jews, even though Jewish immigration had risen sharply since the late 19th century as a result of Zionism, anti-Semitism in Europe, and British support for the creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. The Balfour Declaration of 1917. In 1947, the UN adopted a plan to divide Palestine into two states. This was accepted by the Jews, and the State of Israel came into being on the 14th of May, 1948. The neighbouring Arab states rejected this partition, however, and attacked Israel, the First Arab-Israeli War. They were ultimately driven back, allowing Israel to enlarge in its territory in the process. The West Bank and East Jerusalem were occupied by Jordan, and the Gaza Strip was administered by Egypt. But the Palestinians had no state of their own. After the Six-Day War in 1967, Israel occupied the West Bank, the Golan Heights, the Sinai, later recovered by Egypt via the Camp David Agreement in 1978, the Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. Israel encouraged Jewish settlements in these occupied territories. After the First Intifada, or uprising in 1987, the PLO and Israel negotiated the Oslo Agreements, 1993 and 1995, which formulated the constitution of an autonomous authority to administer the Palestinian territories, although the Gaza Strip and the West Bank remained under partial Israeli control. In 2004, following the collapse of the Oslo process, Ariel Sharon decided to build a 730-kilometre-long barrier on the West Bank. Where was I? Its configuration did not respect the Green Line established by the 1914 armistice and allowed Israel to absorb Jewish settlements. In 2005, Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip. Okay, so this is that map. The Oslo agreements said that the green sections were territory controlled by the Palestinian Authority, and the light yellow colour is territory remaining under Israeli control. So you can see, although this is the West Bank, we've got lots of settlements. These blue dots are Israeli settlements. And they are dotted throughout the area here. Okay, let's discuss the Six-Day War then. Titled 6 Days That Redrew the Map of the Middle East. On the 5th of June 1967, Israel unleashed the Third Arab-Israeli confrontation, after those of 1948 and 1956, in a climate of extreme tension with both Syria and Egypt. President Nasser ordered the withdrawal from Sinai of the UN peacekeeping force that had been in place since 1956. Moreover, Egypt imposed a blockade on the Straits of Tiran, which connected the Israeli port of Eilat with the Red Sea. That's down here. and the Indian Ocean. On the first day, Israel bombed Egyptian airfields, and it took only another 5 days to defeat Egypt, Syria and Jordan. As a result, Israel's surface area quadrupled with respect to its 1949 borders. Demarcated by the green line, as it now included Sinai, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank, and the Golan Heights. Some 500,000 refugees fled to neighbouring countries. East Jerusalem was also annexed. In November 1967, UN Resolution 242 condemned the Israeli occupation of these territories. So it actually got all the way up to Port Said. And this here is the Suez Canal, which is obviously internationally incredibly important. Okay. It seems pertinent to go back a page actually and look at this map, which is, I think, up to modern times the most correct one. So you can see the modern state of Israel here with its occupied territories. And this is the one that's most presently accepted after the 1967 war, in comparison with the others on this page. Okay, so I hope that this video has helped to inform you of the very complex and complicated history of this region, whilst allowing you to see in visual form how things have changed over time. I think it's really important to address this at the moment, to understand the history behind how we've got to this point. As I said before, please do comment, but be respectful. Add your knowledge into the comment section. Fill in any information that seems unsure. And all I can say really is, at the time of recording this video, we are in a ceasefire. I hope that continues, and I hope that there is no further loss of life for either of these two nations, and that a more permanent solution will come in the future.